Good afternoon and welcome to our St. Patrick's Day noontime broadcast. Wherever you're listening, wherever you're watching, happy St. Patrick's Day to you. Here in Ireland it is the most beautiful, beautiful day. The sky's blue. There's a few clouds in the sky, but not many. It looks absolutely glorious. And I'm here in a place called Belmont Domain, which is just up the road from us. It's absolutely beautiful here. I've never seen the car parks as full. There's a lot of people here today because there's lots of beautiful walks in this place. You can go up the little Sugarloaf. Is that it behind me? Yeah, that is the little Sugarloaf behind me. So a lot of people walk up there, but there's some beautiful walks all around here, and I'm going to go on one of those shortly. But it's a beautiful day. So we're continuing our journey with Jesus to Jerusalem, to the cross. We began a few weeks ago at the start of Lent. Luke chapter 9 verse 51 that says Jesus set his face resolutely to go to Jerusalem because that's where he would die. He knew that's what would happen. He didn't try to escape it. It wasn't a lovely prospect, of course, because he knew what lay ahead. He was going to become sin for the world, take our sin upon himself so that we would not have the debt of that sin. But it wasn't going to be easy. So hopefully we've been travelling on that journey with him. Hopefully you've been using this time of Lent to reflect, to read, to pray, to journey with him, because that's what he wants us to do. He says, come and follow me. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be some adventure. So I thought we'd just think for a moment about the adventure that Patrick had, St. Patrick. Patrick was born in 385, a long time ago. And you may know a lot about him. You may know nothing about him other than a St. Patrick's Day celebration, or people wearing green or wearing shamrock, those kind of things. But I was doing some reading about him, and very, very interesting. Yeah, 385 he was born in Britain. One day when he was 16 years old, a raiding party came and kidnapped him, took him back to Ireland. This was a common occurrence, and the Irish raiding parties were the most feared of all. I mean, it was a brutal time. People would be kidnapped, even out of their own beds. Ordinary people, free people, children, young people. And they grabbed Patrick and they took him back to Ireland. They sold him into slavery, and he began to tend sheep. That's the kind of thing that he did. Now let me see if I can turn this camera around. Let me see, where is it? Oh, there it is there. Yeah, I'm kind of in a field with some sheep. He began to tend sheep. That was his job. Up north, near Ballymena, on a hill called Slemish, a hill that I've passed many, many, many times. It was a brutal time, as I say. He had not very much to eat, didn't have many clothes to wear, had absolutely no company, no friends. He was completely and utterly isolated. It was a brutal time. He was out there in the middle of the snow and the frost, in the dark and the light. He was there in all weathers, tending those sheep for 6 long years. Now, Patrick was not a Christian. In fact, he wasn't interested at all. He wanted nothing to do with God. His family were a Christian family. So I'm sure a lot of things have been taught to him, or he had observed what it looked like to be a follower of Jesus, but he himself was not interested. But during those 6 years, a transformation took place. The only person that Patrick had to talk to was his Creator, and he did. And a relationship built up with him and his Lord. He says in his writings he prayed at least 100 times a day, and the same at night. He said the Spirit was so at work within him that he prayed and prayed and prayed. And of course, we know the value of prayer, and I say it all the time. And we talk about the value of prayer. Maybe I just do that, but do we really get into a deep relationship with our God? But that's what Patrick did. Then he had a dream, he had a vision. He had a vision of a ship in a certain place, and it was God's way of telling him it was time to go home. And so he did. He travelled 200 miles from County Antrim all the way down to probably Wexford, distance of 200 miles. You know, you couldn't get a train, you couldn't get a bus. He walked out through the peat bogs It was terrible time. He had no money, he had nothing. But he made his way down 200 miles to Wexford. And when he arrived and saw the ship and saw the harbour, he knew this was the place, because that was the vision that he had seen. The vision that he had seen. He went and approached the sailors and said, could he come with them? And they said, can you pay? He said, no. They said, no, you can't come. So he wandered off to pray. And then the captain called him once more and said he could come, but he wanted him to take part in a pagan greeting. Nothing Christian about it, nothing godly about it. Would he do that? Now, what would you do if you had been Patrick? I mean, he was wanting to get on board a ship, a boat. No one would know if he took part in some kind of pagan greeting, would they? No, they wouldn't know. And we've been looking in the book of Revelation the last number of times, the last number of weeks, at the temptation to compromise our faith, how easy it is to compromise our faith. But Patrick said he couldn't do that. He kept his integrity. His integrity was intact. He would not take part in a pagan greeting. But he got on that ship, they brought him on board that ship, and off he went. He went home. His family, who thought they would never see him again, saw him. They were delighted, of course, weren't they? He stayed there for a few years. They hoped that he would never leave. They never wanted to lose him again. But he had a vision one night of a man, an angel, called Victor, who had many letters in his hand from the people in Ireland. And he gave Patrick one of them. And Patrick read it, and it said, we beg you, O holy boy, to come and walk with us again. Come and walk with us again. He knew this was God speaking to him. He had to leave. He would not be held back. He did some training. Some people say maybe 20 or 25 years of training. And then he returned to Ireland. And wow, what an impact he made. It was hard, very hard. Tough times, a lot of paganism. Druids were big on the scene. They saw him as a threat. People didn't want him. People wanted to get rid of him. But the wonderful thing was that God had called him, and when God calls you, he equips you. He opens the way before you. It doesn't mean it's easy. Patrick wrote of many, many, many hard times. Oh, many hard times. But he knew that God had called him to this. He had left as a slave, but he returned as a servant. He returned as a servant of the living God. He remembered the words of Jesus that says, go into all the world and make disciples. And that's what he did throughout Ireland. Very quickly, he, with his bold preaching and his wonderful, strong character and his confidence in his calling and that relationship that he had built up for those 6 years when it was just him and God through those tough times, he was able to boldly go where no one had gone before. There's a familiar phrase. Many people believed. Many people were baptized. Many people were sent out to preach the gospel, to preach the good news. So that is what Patrick did. Now, this was at a time when the Roman Empire was beginning to crumble. Great darkness was coming over the whole place. The whole vision of the empire was beginning to go. And yet in Ireland, a light began to dawn. And it was Christianity. It was people putting their faith in Jesus, the one who had resolutely set out to Jerusalem, the one who died on the cross for our sin. He's the one that Patrick followed. And he's the one that calls us to follow him also and to make an impact. And you and I can make an impact too, in small ways, in big ways. We can be like a shepherd to the sheep, because that's what we're called to do, to bring this good news to a world that is needy and lost, that is wretched and pitiful and poor. There's so much of that poverty around, spiritual poverty, everywhere we look. But we who know Jesus have got the privilege and the responsibility of living for him, talking about him, sharing, praying. He worked through Patrick. He can work through you. So happy St. Patrick's Day wherever you may be. I hope you have a wonderful day. We're going to pray, and I'm going to use some words of Patrick, words that you'll know well. One of his prayers, his breastplate. So, Let's close by praying together. You can pray along with these words. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise. Christ in the heart of every man who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks of me, Christ in every eye that sees me, Christ in every ear that hears me. I arise today through almighty strength, the invocation of the Trinity, through belief in the threeness, through confession of the oneness of the Creator of all creation. So, hope you've enjoyed being in Belmont Domain today with me. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful St. Patrick's Day wherever you may be. And until I see you again, be blessed.